So I wondered if it were possible to create a statement or like a name or something more complicated than just monograms with the Singer Monogrammer. So here I've got leather punch and it's worked out quite well. I tried a few different alternatives with zigzag, stitch and straight. I found, and adjusting a few things on it. It's okay with sort of 1.5 millimeter zigzag, very, very tiny. But I found the clearest was actually just using a straight stitch and increasing the density on the side of the attachment. So in order to do this, I measured the characters, and it seemed that they're all roughly 3/8 of an inch. So with a line, we just do a line across, that line needs to be lined up with part of the attachment. Okay, and then what's really important is don't start right at the first, leave yourself some space, and then mark every 3/8 of an inch for all of the characters you need. 1, 2, 3. And just put a line in something disappearing. In this case I'm using sort of white chalk. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oops, that was 4. So the eraser will get rid of that, no problem. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So just keep doing 1, 2, 3/8, whatever works best for you, until you've got enough characters. And just to make sure I didn't get confused, not all of you will need this, I wrote the actual characters underneath. So in this case, for leather punch, I did LEATHER space PUNCH. So that way I didn't get, put the wrong character on. Then it was relatively simple to do this. The only one that I was a little disappointed with was this N. For some reason it ended up being over to the left more than the other characters, which sat in the middle. So that could have been user error, or the N is inclined to be over on the left side, which I'll find out when I run another test. You can see, but I'm quite happy with that. But let's go over to the machine and see how it works. So one moment. So what I found on the side of this is this stitch density knob. So you have to unscrew this and then you move this whether you want more or less dense. What I found is toward the front works really well with just a straight stitch to give very, very clear stitches. So that's where I've got it set. And then in the top I've just got the cam. Now what's important to know about these cams is it takes a bit of art to start them. They will stop automatically, but starting them and getting them in when you're first putting them on is a bit of a skill. So I'm going to move the camera so you can see. They are quite tight when you put them on, but let me move the camera over here and I will show you. Okay, so from the side, I think you can see that relatively clearly. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so there are two parts to this. There's this, so the front part moves like this, and then you'll see this little bit in here that's moving. That goes and follows the track on the bottom of the cam. And then this part here goes on the top of the cam. So what's really important, I find, is just when you're first fitting these in, make sure, and there's a flat spot as well, so you have to put that onto this central stand. And then what's important is I find it works really well, like lift the needle when it's attached. You have to spin this around until it actually drops in. So it's dropped in there. And then you can just keep spinning it around, and what you do is that you know it's connected if the front of the foot starts moving when you're spinning this. You know you've got it in there, and then you're good. So the next part that's really important is this line will always be starting the cam at the very beginning. And the reason you know that is because on the top of this there are these two arrows which point to that line. That's where you start it. But equivalently, this moves back and forth. So when you're starting, once you've got the bottom hooked in, you have to move this forward and then put that in there, and then away you go. So that's now ready to be used. It's in the start position, although it's for an H. So because I want to do this in order, I'm going to change it over to the L that I want to start with. There's my L. Now the one thing I found about this attachment is it had the wrong, that's for a 600 series machine. But fortunately for my button holder, I had the one from the 500 series machine, so I just took the one out of my button holder, and that's absolutely fine there. It works. So off we go. So I'm just going to close this up for a moment. So as usual, lift and hook that over the needle bar. Find the screw hole, screw it in. You need the screw which is smaller, just to make sure it really fits in tight. If you've got strong fingers, you won't need a screwdriver. Always don't over tighten, just snug it. And now it's in place for how you would start sewing. So this is where it gets exciting. You're thinking, well, how do I do this from the back? Well, the same rule applies. Remember, this bit moves around, so it's easy to line up. And this part has the flat spot. So all you have to do is look up there, see where the flat spot is. And then once it snugs on, you're good. Then the next part is to make sure this is hooked in. So that's hooked in now because I can feel it moving. You can see it's moving. That's good. Then what I'll do is line that line up straight ahead towards me. Pull this little thing down, make sure it's in the trough, shut the door, turn it, and that's ready to go on the letter L. So now comes the fun bit. So we're all set, and what you notice is the machine is slightly off to a funny angle. This is why I drew that line in the beginning. So what I found makes it easier, this is just for me. There'd be lots of different ways to achieve this, I'm sure. Use the left side, use the right side. But I find the right side of this, so you've got these crosshairs. I find it, if you line up the lines horizontally, okay, on that line, that gives you the right sort of height, so that all the characters will be on the same, on the right. And then the vertical line at the 3/8 mark, I want it just inside of that. So what you can see is I've lined this line up here, and then this line is even with that. And that means the character will line up in the center of that spot. So let me zoom in and show you that. So if you look, the chalk line lines up with the horizontal lines, and then the edge of that 3/8 is on the right hand side. So when I start stitching, bring up the thread. So this is really difficult with one hand, but I will try to do this. Okay, bring up the thread from the bottom. Once you do the first one, just jump across to the next character, and then you don't have to, oh. Okay, so I brought up the thread after all that. I'll just hold them and start stitching. When it gets to the end, it just stops. A few stitches in place and you're done. So what we can do now is, normally I just go over to the next character, but I'm going to snip these now and then pull back. So again, when you start doing character 2, you have to lift the flap, pull this out, and we're on to the letter E. So we get letter E out of the box. I find these are actually quite difficult to get out, so tweezers would help me a bit. Now that I've put letter E in, same principle, just line it up, drop, good. Now it's just a matter of stitch. Done. Very simple. Letter A. So just, repeat as necessary. C, D, E. Letter A is the first one. So I'll show you, this can be quite, you can get a good process going eventually. The hardest part is definitely lining up this thing in oops. E. It's hooked in there now. That's, I find, the awkward bit, is lining that up. There we go. So that's now lined up. Letter A is done. Letter T. Anyway, I'm not going to put you through all this, but you get the idea. Just over and over and over again. So it's possible. A bit of practice and I'm sure we could get fantastic results out of this. Anyway, bye for now.